So this is odd because I don't have someone in the room over there to give me the thumbs up to say we're recording. So I'll look for a little note in the chat. All right, thank you. So welcome everyone to the City of Maplewood Housing and Economic Development Commission meeting for Thursday, October 15th. We do have a quorum in the room. It's sort of tough to see on a virtual meeting, but we are here, and I don't have a gavel, so I'm going to just call us to order at 6:01. And with that, we'll move to the first item on, well, technically the second item on the agenda, the roll call. And the cool thing with virtual is we can see everyone's names. So, but just so you can say hi, actually we can't go down the line. You don't know who's in what order on a virtual meeting. So I'll just call out Joy, you're present.
Here.
Daryl Henson.
Here.
And Sarah Burdash. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep, here.
Cool. All right, so that is
Bao just joined too. I see Bao's.
Oh, there's Bao. Hi, Bao.
How is everyone?
Doing good. We were just doing roll call, so you're just in time to announce yourself as present as our fifth commissioner in the meeting. We need 4 for quorum, so we have quorum, and that gives us roll call. The next item is approval of agenda. And the agenda, technically, normally it's just the sitting commissioners who would approve it. Technically, if Bao, if you or Sarah had watched the video of the meeting, you could vote. It's up to you. If you've watched the videos, you can go yay or nay. Otherwise, feel free to abstain on the approval of agenda. I'm sorry. The agenda you guys can approve.
I move to approve the agenda for tonight.
Everyone's involved in this agenda, so you can all vote on that. The
Yes.
minutes are where you have to have watched the recording. Man, I'm rusty. Come on. Okay, so any additions or changes or modifications to the agenda that you have in front of you or that was presented?
I don't have any.
Daryl, anything you want to add to it?
No, I'm good.
I mean, come on, it's a beefy agenda. There's plenty of room to put more in it. Okay, so seeing no changes or proposals for change to the agenda, I will look for a motion to approve the agenda. For Bao and Sarah, this can be anyone on the commission can make a motion to approve it, and then I will look for a second. So a motion to approve the agenda.
This is Joy. I make a motion to approve.
So we have a motion from Joy Chachuk to approve the agenda. Do we have a second?
I second.
A second from Daryl Henson. With a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Or abstentions? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved, ayes all. We will go on to the approval of the minutes. So here's the part I was talking about if you've watched the videos or not. Anyone notice any changes or edits we need to make to the minutes from our meeting for October 17th, 2019? Okay, seeing no changes for the minutes, I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I move.
So we have a motion from Daryl Henson, and do we have a second? Joy, I think that would be you if you want to second that.
I wasn't there though, so, and I didn't watch it.
Oh, you weren't? Okay. Well, then I can second that. So I will second the motion to approve the minutes with a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. I think
Aye.
that's going to be Daryl and I. And then anyone nay? And any abstentions?
That would be me.
And so Sarah's abstained. I'm sorry, Bao has abstained. All right. With that, in the eyes of the chair, the motion passes. The minutes are approved as presented.
Mark,
Yes,
I did have a question about the minutes
sure.
last year. So was there a report from the chamber, a 2019 report where it says update on 2019 business engagement program?
My memory at that point was it was a discussion item. Let me see. I'm going to reread. Yeah, Jeff gave a brief update on the program. I don't think we would have received a formal report, Jeff, until end of calendar year. Is that right?
That's correct.
So yeah, so this was a verbal report from Jeff at that point, not a formal report from the chamber at that point.
Okay, I guess that was my question. I was following up on, was there ever a report in 2020?
I think Jeff will probably cover that when we get to number 9 on the agenda, because you are going to discuss the business retention program. Okay, so we'll get there.
Okay.
All right. Actually, it's item 5 as I'm looking at it, 5B. So with the approvals, we will move on to new business. And Jeff, those are yours.
Thank you, Chair, Commission. So the first item on the agenda tonight is actually an action item. Brian Finley, who previously served on this commission, the Housing and Economic Development Commission, his term ended at the end of September. September 30th was the end of his term, and he did decide not to reapply to head seat. So he served on the commission since January of 2016. So over 4 years. He had served on the head seat, and so typically what we do is we bring a resolution of appreciation for any commissioner that's resigned for their service to the commission for your review and approval, or your review and recommendation, and then ultimately we will forward that on to the council, and they will review it at their meeting on October 26th. And so the resolution was included in your packet. Essentially, recognizes that Brian Finley served on the Housing and Economic Development Commission for 5 years. Or just under 5 years, that the city and the commission appreciated his experience, his insight and judgment, and for giving of his time and energy, and with that, thank him for his service on behalf of the residents and businesses of the city of Maplewood. So with that, Chair, we would be looking for actual action on this item with a motion and approval.
All right. So yeah, thank you for that, Jeff. Yeah, Brian was great. Loved working with him, and man, it's amazing to think that has been 5 years already that Brian was on. So no, really appreciate Brian's volunteering and working on the commission. I don't know if anyone else has any other comments before I look for a motion. All right. I'll look for a motion to approve the resolution of appreciation for Brian Finley. So I see 2 motions unmute. So who's going to get their unmute first?
So moved.
So Joy gets the motion. Daryl, do you want the second?
I will second, yes.
All right. So we have a motion by Joy Tchuk for the resolution of appreciation and a second from Daryl Henshin. It sort of feels odd. I always repeat these, Jeff, because we do it so when they listen to the audio for the minutes, but now we've got our names right up on the screen. But I'll keep the old habits moving. So we have a motion. We have a second for the resolution of appreciation. All of those in favor of approving that resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion Passes, ayes all. And again, Brian, if you're watching, thank you. Loved working with you. Thank you for your service to Maplewood and its citizens.
Yep, thanks.
Okay. Next item, Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. And then I should just to follow up on that we do have our two new commissioners here this evening that they were actually appointed by the council on Monday night. So Sarah Berdash and Bao Vang are joining us tonight. Thanks for joining us on very short notice. We know you're appointed on Monday and had this quick meeting, but welcome. Glad you were able to join us.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you for volunteering. As you can see by the resolution that just passed, the city, the citizens, everyone recognizes that this is completely volunteer effort. And thank you for giving of your time. And we'll have some fun in the next, whenever the heck our next meeting is. And eventually someday in person when we get out of this pandemic. All right, Jeff. The
Am I unmuted? That's the first question.
Nope, you're good. I can hear you.
I'm good. Okay. So then, Chair and Commission, the next item on the agenda is I just wanted to do an update on our business outreach. Each year, as was kind of referenced earlier, we partner with the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce. Have been doing this for a number of years, and as part of this program, we visit Maplewood businesses and just try to make the connections with our businesses that are in Maplewood, connect with them on any interactions they've had with the city over the past year and events that they participate in. And then the second piece is just to talk about their business, the industry and the sector that they work in, and then just kind of how their business is doing. We ask usually some questions around workforce and staffing, about how their workforce and staffing are happening, and also just any other needs that they have that the city can connect them with, resources or programs that we have or that we know other organizations have. So this is, again, we do it every year, and just want to provide an update. Usually this happens much earlier in the year. So this is usually a spring and summer, and we're usually wrapped up by this time. As we go through the agenda tonight, you'll see there's been some disruptions that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on some of the city's operations, and this is one thing that was delayed until just started recently. The main reason is, the chamber was focused on other initiatives, and then also just other things that were happening in the city that we were primarily focusing on. So we are doing them online now. So this year we are doing them by Zoom. Usually, as you know, we've always done them in person. We try to have a representative from the St. Paul Chamber actually attend the meetings. One of the city staff, it's usually myself and or Melinda Coleman, our city manager, and then a representative from this commission, so the Housing and Economic Development Commission, and then also, if available, a representative of either the mayor or one of our council members. So as I mentioned, we have just started this year's. What we do is there are a number of businesses or organizations that we visit every year. And so those include Maplewood Mall, the two school districts, Roseville Schools and Maplewood Oakdale North St. Paul District, as well as St. John's Hospital and 3M. So we visit because they are kind of the largest employers in our community and some of the largest businesses or organizations in the community. We visit them every year. And then the remaining businesses, we try to hit at least 20, so somewhere between 20 and 30 that we hit per year or visit per year. Those vary. So we try to have a broad range of types of businesses that we are visiting. So this is the list just to who we visited so far. So we have visited the Maplewood Mall, and we've have completed those two visits on the two school districts, both the Roseville Schools as well as the Maplewood Oakdale St. Paul 622 district. And I just want to put on here the upcoming schedule. So here are the upcoming visits that are already scheduled. This is not the final list by any means. Yao Yang with the St. Paul Area kind of coordinates this program. She is kind of continually reaching out to businesses to schedule these. So as we get them on our calendar, you will, I know you've seen or will be seeing emails from Yao essentially giving the date of when the business visit is happening and asking for someone from HETC to volunteer, if available, to attend one of those meetings. So they're very helpful in the past. I know last year we did some strategic planning with the council around our housing and economic development initiatives. And this was, as we plotted out all the initiatives and economic development things that we're doing in the city, this was plotted on our graph as low effort and high impact. So it's a hugely beneficial program for us to do because it really connects us with our businesses in town to understand what's happening and how we can better partner. And a lot of great connections have come out of it. You know, we've businesses that we stay in touch with and continually reach out to us once we've made these connections. So this is just an update to let you know where we are at with this year's. Usually the Commissioner Kachuk, usually the presentation happens at the business engagement breakfast in October. And last year that event was actually canceled. It wasn't held last year. And then also this year, because of the pandemic, that event's not being held. So we can certainly look for, as we wrap these up by the end of the year, we can certainly look for a way to present kind of the findings and some of the themes that we've seen from these business meetings to the larger group. So we'll continue to think of a new way to be able to continue to do that outreach once we get that final report from the business visit. So with that, that's my update. If there are certainly, I know a number, as visiting 20 to 30 per year over the last number of years, we visited a ton of businesses. So I think as we continue in this program, you know, the goal we will have is to continually find new businesses to reach out to. So if you know of a business that you are personally connected with, that you work with on a regular basis, and in particular have a connection with a person there, please let either me or Yao know about that, and we will coordinate with them to make sure we can get a time to get out there and visit with them. So that's where we're at. Again, delayed from where we typically would be at this time of year, but we thought it was still important to continue with the program. And we're actually getting, in the ones we've been at, we've actually probably have more representatives from these organizations and businesses being able to attend, just because of the platform sometimes makes it a little bit easier for folks. So we'll build on that as we continue here in the remaining part of 2020.
So there wasn't a report for last year, right?
There is a written report. So we do have the actual written report from the chamber that I can certainly, if you haven't seen it, I can certainly send it along.
And then the only other thing that I was wondering about was, I know that, you know, this has been a program that has gone on for quite a few years. And I think Mark was probably one of the lead people that had initiated it. But, you know, I was just wondering if there have been some trends that have been identified, like over the long scheme. Because for some reason, I don't remember seeing some of these reports. And I know we typically ask the same questions kind of from year to year. And so I guess I'm just kind of wondering, are we seeing anything within Maplewood, within the St. Paul area, because, you know, the St. Paul Chamber, that are identifiable?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to, this is my second year participating. So, you know, just my own personal observations. I think we hear a lot of the same trends around workforce and finding qualified workforce, as that has probably changed somewhat this year, just given some of the larger economic impacts. But certainly we hear from, I know last year, and a common thread around a lot of positions that stay open because they're unable to find qualified employees with the skills they need to be able to find that. So that's certainly one trend I've found. But it's a good point that as we look at this year's report, you know, maybe we can have the chamber go back and do some sort of themes over years as well, not only like the theme of what we heard this year, but also, you know, tracking some of these themes over the years we've been doing it. I think that's good feedback.
Yeah, I agree. They're normally very good with giving us if not statistics, at least language in the report about how their observation in Maplewood compare to the greater St. Paul area. But that is usually a year-over-year analysis. Yeah, if we can ask them to give us just some feedback on the Maplewood data, and I think we've been with the chamber now for about 4 years. So Joy, I don't think they'll have access to the stuff Mike and I did in the years prior, but at least over the 4 years of data that the chamber has collected, that would be good.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good program. There is a real personal connection. I think the businesses really feel that they're being valued because they're being heard, and and they say a lot of, I think, good things about the police and the people who respond to issues and things like that. And so it's a, like Jeff said, it's a really good program where there's interaction, personal interaction.
Yeah, and for Sarah and Bao, it's educational. You get to learn about the businesses in Maplewood. It is rewarding because, like Joy said, and I'll qualify it. First of all, in all of my visits, I think the police get the most praise from any of our visits. Our public safety department, the police, the firemen, do fantastic job working with the community, working with our businesses, being engaged. But at the same point, we've had businesses where they have taken the opportunity to share with us information we need to know as a city as well. Whether it's, and these go back a few years, but, feedback on how the construction project on Stillwater Avenue was going. And there was some praise there, but White Bear Avenue, there were some issues, and it happened to be the county, but we got involved and we got the issue addressed. So it is a good opportunity to hear the good things of the city, but also give us an opportunity to respond where it maybe isn't usually a big enough issue that they're going to pick up the phone and call Jeff and go, Jeff, what's going on? But hey, we're sitting with them and they're happy to share those experiences and give us that feedback too. So yeah, it's a tremendous program. Sarah, Bao, if you have a chance to attend any of these, absolutely attend. I think you'll find them rewarding. And the information that we get from those businesses, I say it all the time, but for those of you who may be watching for the first time, it is used, it is important, it is very engaged in our planning as a city for the future. So yeah, if you're in a business in Maplewood and you want to find out what we're talking about, reach out to Jeff Thompson on the website and we'll be happy to try to schedule a visit with you too. So no, this is a great program. And Joy, you're right. I was, let me see, persistent maybe about this program in the early days to be polite. So yeah, this has been great. Okay, anything else on that topic, Jeff?
No, just to note those upcoming visits. Yao kind of coordinates the schedule. So I'm guessing, I think tomorrow's is in person and may involve maybe some samples of bakery good items. So my guess is that one's probably filled. It was probably a very popular one. And you'll know there's actually a trend in the upcoming list that there's two things. One, you'll see a number of restaurants there. I think that was strategic based on some of the impacts we know of around the pandemic and business closures. And also a lot of businesses that are in the Rice-Larpenter area, because as we get later in the agenda, we'll talk about some of the outreach and partnership we're working at Rice-Larpenter, that some of these businesses overlap with our business outreach as our partnership with Roseville and St. Paul. So no action here. We'll keep you updated and send those emails out as these additional business visits happen. And I'll follow up on the 2019 report to the group and the comments we've received here tonight.
All right, fantastic. So with that brings us to unfinished business. Actually, before we do that, I'm sorry, just any other commissioners have comments or thoughts on the business engagement program before I rush us off to the next point?
This is Mel.
Yes.
I was going to add it into the group chat, but can I just, I'm going to have to take off because this is short notice and I have other commitments.
Yep.
But can that be emailed to me, or can someone email me and direct me where to find more information, so then that way I can just kind of be caught up in the conversation?
Absolutely. I can send that. I'll send I can pull the last several years reports and get that off to you and Sarah, so you can see those, and maybe I just send them to everybody so we have them as part of our records. And then we'll make sure you both get added to our email list for the emails from the Chamber of Commerce.
That sounds great. Thank you. And I'm going to sign off. So everyone have a good night.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll move on. Item 6, unfinished business. Nothing on that agenda item. 7, visitor presentations. I do not believe we have any visitors in the room, so we will move on to commission presentations. Nothing added to the agenda there. So we're right back to you, Jeff. Staff presentations.
I'm going to have my screen shared to make sure I'm not muted. Okay, we're good. Thank you again, Chair, Commission. So first, on just staff presentations, want to give you an update of where we are at with the rental housing program. This is something that Head C has been involved in for a number of years, as the city has initially studied, ultimately then did a lot of engagement, and the council decided to establish a rental housing licensing program in Maplewood. And so last October when we were meeting, it was right after the council had adopted the ordinance. And so we had, back in October, we did go through the ordinance just to give an update of what the final version is and what the final requirements are. And we just wanted to give you an update of what's happened in 2020 around this program. So maybe just to highlight the quick overview, that the purpose of the program, we put these in the ordinance, is to provide safe, secure, and sanitary housing to ensure neighborhood stability, and then also to make sure that our housing stock, and this is focused on our rental housing stock and rental housing units in the community, are being maintained in a good quality condition, and that we're correcting any sort of substandard housing conditions. As you know from past discussions, if you were here, in the past, we did not require any sort of license for rental properties. And so if there were issues either from a public safety perspective with crime or other disorder and or housing quality conditions, substandard conditions, it was really based on complaints. So it was really reliant on information either from neighbors or from tenants of the building that there were conditions that needed to be addressed. And sometimes a complaint-based system, you have the number of rental housing units isn't proactive enough to address some of these concerns. And so that, based on that, that's why the council did decide to implement this program. Not going to go through all the details. Certainly I provided some information in the staff report with some more details, and certainly the ordinance provides everything. But just to give a quick framework of what this is that we're talking about, this program essentially requires any rental property in the city to have a license from the city, and that's an annual license. There are a small group of exceptions to when a rental property is not required, and that is these three I put on here. One, obviously, if it's occupied by the owner, it's not required to have a license, and or if it's occupied by an owner's relative. The second is what we kind of call the snowbird provision. So if the house is rented for less than 120 days per year, and then the owner lives there the remaining part of the year, again, that property would be exempted. And the third does encompass quite a few properties. So if it's licensed in another way, and these are pretty much all facilities that are licensed by the Department of Health. So they tend to be like assisted living facilities or group homes, things that are licensed by the state that provide some sort of service or housing component that's licensed by the state. Because this program would be redundant or have some overlap, those facilities are not also licensed as part of this program. As I mentioned, it's an annual license, so it's required every year. And then as we launch the program, we have been doing and will continue to do inspections. So in order to obtain the license, you need to have an inspector from the city come out and review the property, both the units, the exterior of the building, and common areas to ensure that they're complying with our housing ordinance. And then once the initial inspections are done and our plan is for a 3-year roll-in of those initial inspections. Once those initial inspections have been done, they would then be put onto a schedule of ongoing inspections as well. So those that are in compliance would be inspected less often, up to every 3 years, and those that have more ongoing maintenance issues that need to be addressed would be inspected annually by the city. So there's another program where there have been some impacts on the program from the pandemic. One was just timing. The program is launched, but it took a little bit later in the year to get there. But the main one is actually on some of the inspections. So as the pandemic has happened, the city's looked at employee safety as a primary driver of our decisions. So if you look at some of our building inspections, we're still not going in occupied residences for non-critical building permit inspections. And so we have made the decision that we are going to focus this year on exterior properties, common areas of apartment buildings, and vacant units within the building. But again, if there are any sort of occupied units, for now, we're not going to be inspecting those as part of this program unless we get complaints. Of course, if there's any time we get a complaint, we can go in them. But that's where we're focusing, just to ensure that our inspectors that are out there are safe and that the residents that are living in these units are also safe. So here's what has happened this year. We have made a significant amount of progress on the program, and it is launched. So it is live and happening. So the big 2 things that happened at the beginning of the year is we did hire the staff. So part of the fee structure that the city charges for the license does fund 2 positions in community development to administer the program. The first is a neighborhood preservation specialist. So that's our second neighborhood preservation specialist, but this position is really focused on rental licensing. We hired Sam Drury, is her name, that's in that position, and she has extensive experience administering these programs. So she was in Cottage Grove for a number of years, working in code enforcement, and also administered their entire rental licensing program. So great to have her on board and to administer the program. And then we do have Gina Kuchenmeister, who joined us from Parks, is now in as our admin assistant to kind of do the processing of licensing. So she has other tasks as well within the department, but those are the 2 people that we have in community development that are really dedicated to administering the program. Last year, you actually reviewed, you may recall, the International Property Maintenance Code. And so we in Maplewood had like our own housing code. So, and I don't know when it dates back to, but it was quite a while ago that rather than adopt a third-party housing code, we had actually adopted our own. So it was in our ordinance. It's kind of our own unique standalone code. It was very difficult for our staff to administer over the years. It was just unclear at times and hadn't been updated. And so most cities that have these programs are moving to the International Property Maintenance Code. It's a code that's adopted by the International Code Council, which also adopts the building codes. So same organization that does that. It's updated every 3 years. It's regularly reviewed, but it's formally amended every 3 years. Because it references the building code, it's a lot easier to enforce, and it's more comprehensive in its approach. And so you had reviewed it and had some comments that we incorporated and did recommend the council approve that, and they did. So earlier this year, they removed our entire housing code as it existed before and adopted in its place the IPMC. And it actually applies to all properties. So that's not just for rental properties. We're actually now using that for even owner-occupied properties, for example. So that has been done and is in place, and that's when we do the inspections, you know, the checklist and inspections are based on the items in that code. We have officially required all multifamily properties to be licensed, and so there are 57 of those. These are our complexes. You know, these are the big properties, more than 4 units. There are a total of like 90 buildings, but 57 total kind of developments that we have started to license. And so that's underway. This is where the majority of our units are. That's why we started there. But again, we've started to license those 57 and have inspected or scheduled probably about a quarter of those so far. And the goal is to, again, continue working our way through those through the end of the year. The single family, so that's again for anything that's 4 units or more. The single family is a little bit harder to identify, and there are just a greater number of them. So 57 is where all the units are. The single family is where just the sheer number of licenses are. And so that's why you kind of pair these out into different things. Our goal is to launch the single family requirement end of this year or beginning of 2021. So that's when we will officially start actually licensing anything that's 1, 2, or 3 units within the community. There's a couple examples where we may license them. If, for example, if it's owner occupied and they're going to start licensing it, we'll take that license now because it's vacant, and so we can get into it. But again, the majority of those we will wait until beginning part of the next year to start that. I think that's all I had. We just wanted to give you an update on where the program's at. Know that it's gone over well so far. You know, there was obviously some concern from the rental properties about the program just because of the cost and the inspections and what would come with it. But I think we've been very thoughtful on how we've launched this program to make sure that we're consistent, you know, that we're regulating properties the same. And so it's gone well. So that's where we're at on this program, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
So I have a question. It says that owners and their property managers are required to attend crime-free housing training. What does that consist of? Where does that training come from? And then how is it tracked that, the people from each unit has attended? Yeah.
Good question. So that is a program that is put on by the Minnesota Crime-Free Prevention Coalition. That's the name of it. It's actually an established program. They have several levels. So I think we require the phase 1 training. It's a significant undertaking. It's like a half-day course that they're required to take about best management practices from public safety. So that's where the program is held. This is an impact because that organization is not offering the program during the pandemic. So they have stopped offering it at the moment and we've talked to them about doing, it virtually, but because they see a relationship building piece as being important as part of that, they have decided not to offer it online. So we're continuing to talk to them to determine when they're going to start doing it again. But ultimately, people can't go through that training until that organization starts offering it again. So we are issuing licenses without that training for now because it's not available. But as the training becomes available, we will circle back to those license holders and make sure that that happens as soon as possible.
So you're flagging it somehow on your database that they have not gone through that training yet?
Correct. Yep. And the good thing is at least with the multifamily is that many of them own properties in other cities and are already part of a rental licensing program. And so many of them already have the training, not all certainly, but a lot already have it because of the requirements in other cities for some of their other properties. But if they don't, we are absolutely flagging them and to follow up later once the program is available.
Okay, then I had another where it says, I think it's bullet point that's 2 down from there, owners or their property managers must have written leases for all people that live in the rental unit. Leases must require tenants to sign a lease addendum for crime-free, drug-free housing. I'm just wondering how many tenants actually read all the things that they have to sign. You know,
Sure.
I mean, because you go someplace and you go sign here, sign here, sign here, you know.
Sure. Yeah, no, it could certainly be an issue, but ultimately it's enforceable. So, I mean, this is one of the public safety components of the program that the police department wanted, so that we had the ability that landlords and property owners have the ability to terminate a lease if there are documented calls for service for the police department. So we can't, of course, on any of this stuff, you know, require tenants to read it and to understand it, but certainly we require it, and it's enforceable even if they haven't fully read it when they sign it.
Okay. Oh, and then one other quick question. So there's inspections. Who in the city is doing these inspections? Is it the building folks that are doing the inspections the first time through, or?
It is primarily our new neighborhood preservation specialist. So Sam Drury is experienced in the IPMC, in the property maintenance code. And so she's the primary contact for all the initial inspections. If she discovers or sees other items, such as things that are related to public health, environmental health, or building inspections or fire code, she would certainly loop in those folks to also come out and to review it. But she's the primary inspector on all the properties.
Okay, and then I noticed that there's like almost 500 properties. She's gonna do 500 inspections over the next couple of years?
Yes. It's a 3-year roll-in, so that's the plan, is to do all those within the next 3 years.
Okay, and there's 500 rental properties. How did you identify that there's that many rental properties? I don't know what the housing stock in Maplewood is, but is that a typical chunk of rentals in a community? In a community?
It is very easy for us to identify the multifamily properties. It is much more challenging for us to formally identify the single family properties. Where our information has come from is we have pulled just the tax records for all non-homesteaded single family properties. But we know that there are non-homesteaded properties that aren't rental. There may be other reasons why people have their properties non-homesteaded. So we've taken the total number, and I forget the total number of non-homesteaded, and just done kind of an estimation, how many we think. So that's a definite estimated number, but that's the group that we've communicated with so far. So all of the correspondence we sent out have been focused on those non-homesteaded residential single family.
Okay, I was wondering how you got that number. But that makes sense.
Yeah. So with that, Chair, again, this isn't an action item. We just wanted to update you with where we're at, answer any questions that the commission has, and we'll keep you updated as the program continues.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
If there's nothing else on that, I can jump into the development update, because this one is meaty. There's a lot.
Well, you mean some stuff has happened while we've been
a
gone?
lot. I was working on this today and thought, and I know it intellectually, just on how busy we've been. And I'm hearing it from our department for sure in community development. But as you just go back and review the council agenda since January, you realize there is a lot happening on the housing and economic development front in Maplewood. So you can stop. I'm just going to start going through stuff so you know where projects are at, and you can stop me if I'm on a project you want more information on, because I certainly can't cover every detail of the project if there's something you're wondering about. So I'm just going to start with kind of some of the bigger developments just in Maplewood and what's happening. Some you probably know about, but just to get everybody on the same page. This is the first project, which is Menards. So they are approved. They are going to be redeveloping their store at 61 and 36. That includes tearing down, demolishing the entire store today. They have purchased 6 single-family homes along County Road B. And as part of their approvals, the council re-guided and rezoned those residential properties to incorporate them into the Menards site for their new store. So this is the site plan and the proposed building elevation, but this is, you've probably seen the new Menards stores going up throughout the metro. This was the next one on their list. It is, I think it's either the or one of the top 2 highest sale Menards in the Twin Cities metro area. So it's a very well-performing store, which is why it's probably been delayed a little bit. But now they are going to be doing their new prototype and new store on this site. So it's already been approved. They were already planning to not start this project to next year. So the project was approved before the pandemic hit. But even before, it was not planned to start construction until 2021. So that is still their time frame. They're going to start some of the demo and preliminary work this fall, but next year look for that store to close temporarily while they rebuild the new store on that site. I don't know if we've done a business visit there, but maybe it's worth one in the future once the new store is open to take a look.
Yeah, I think that would be really important, only because I attended a meeting that the residents had last year. I know the mayor was there too, and the houses that weren't bought were really concerned with noise and where it backs up into like their backyard, and because there's a lot of shipping that comes in and out, and they were, concerned about sound and then runoff, with how they were going to address extra blacktop and things like that. And so
sure.
I remember them not being the happiest people.
Sure.
So,
Jeff, I'm curious, how long do they anticipate being closed and construction taking?
I forget. It's not as long as as I thought it would be. So I forget the exact time frame. I don't want to misspeak, but it's less than a full construction season. And they did state that any employees that are here will be temporarily located in other stores, so there wouldn't be any layoffs associated with the store closure.
Okay, thank you.
No, I know, we know that home improvement stores are doing incredibly well during the pandemic right now, so it'll be interesting for them to close that site. Second big project was actually just approved on Monday. So we go from one that was approved probably in January, February, to one that was just approved on Monday. And this is a new hotel in the North End. So the North End vision plan that the city had worked on for a while had always had a goal of at least a hotel. This isn't in the core of where we anticipate future redevelopment in the mall. But this is the vacant site, where the last remaining site of Legacy Village. So hard to see on this plan, but it's Ashley Furniture is directly east of the site. So it's the vacant site directly west of Ashley Furniture. It's always been a commercial retail site. It's adjacent to residential, but it's always been planned for commercial. It sounds like the last proposal was for like a multi-tenant retail strip center a number of years ago. But Wood Spring Suites has approved to build a new 126-room hotel on that site. So it's a national brand. There's 3 in the metro today. I think it's Woodbury, Mendota Heights, and I want to say Fridley is the 3rd one. But it's a part of the Choice Hotels brand. It's a national brand, as I said, and it's an extended stay hotel. So they talked about the market of having the hotel in the area, as well as just the larger area being underserved for hotels. But they will be, they're approved, and we'll be building this on that vacant site. 2021 is the time frame on that. So So that's happening in the north end. This one you probably know about. This is probably the most talked about project in Maplewood. This is a new Hy-Vee. So Hy-Vee is going to be locating in Maple Ridge Center, in where Rainbow Foods used to be at Jarvis and White Bear Avenue, so just north of 36. We've actually been working on this project for well over a year. Very complicated project and complicated redevelopment. There are three components of the project. So there will be a main Hy-Vee grocery store in the former Rainbow Foods. So smaller footprint, because it's an old Rainbow, it's actually a little bit smaller than some of the new Hy-Vees in the region, but it's a full service Hy-Vee grocery store. The second component is there will be a new freestanding gas station. So it's called the Hy-Vee Fast and Fresh. It's gas station and convenience store. That'll be a new construction out along White Bear Avenue. And then the third piece of the project is they will have a Hy-Vee wine and spirits, and that will be in the strip center component, on the strip center side. So they'll take one of the tenant bays in that building. So those are the three Hy-Vee elements that'll be on the site. It is, there'll be complete rehab of the Rainbow building. You can see the rendering here. It doesn't even look like Rainbow, but that's actually not a new building. That's actually a remodel and renovation of that existing building. As I mentioned, the new convenience store. And then the changes we have worked with them on is there will be access changes on White Bear Avenue. So the site has really bad access on White Bear today. And so they're going to be shifting it to the south. You can see it on the plan here. Right now it's up closer to Caribou. They'll be moving it like 80 feet to the south, and it's going to line up with the accesses from the businesses on the east side. So where Discount Tire and the retail building where the liquor store is in, this new access lines up with their access, and it'll be signalized. So that'll be a new traffic signal on White Bear to facilitate much safer and better access, as well as to just improve traffic flow on White Bear Avenue. And then also cleaning up some of the accesses on Jarvis, so be correcting some of those and going from 3 to 2. This has been a partnership. So a partnership with the county, with Hy-Vee, the city, and the property owners across the street. And the EDA did approve a TIF district. So they established a tax increment financing district for the Maple Ridge Center site, and then approved a TIF agreement to fund part of the public improvements on this project. So it's about $500,000 that the city will be contributing. The cost of the public improvements is well over $1 million. The city or the EDA will be providing some tax increment financing to assist with the public improvements because of those extraordinary costs. And we see big benefits to the public, not only on the traffic and access, but the tax base at this center, putting new tenants into a building or a site that had seen a number of vacancy and some decline. So this is a big project for Maplewood, and if you've driven by it recently, you've seen it's under construction and they're going gangbusters out there. So, Hy-Vee, any questions on Hy-Vee?
Do we know the estimated opening?
Construction, it's phased. Because some things take more time than the other. Some of the elements will be finished by the end of the year, but look until spring, summer of next year for all three of these items to be open. The gas station, the liquor store, and the grocery store will all be open by early summer of next year.
Great.
And then I just want to do an update on what's happening in the north end. So last year, the council adopted the vision plan for the area around Maplewood Mall, St. John's Hospital, and the surrounding area. So that plan's adopted. We are working on some of the implementation of that. This is the less exciting part of redevelopment sometimes, is you have to put the zoning in place to make it happen. So we're wrapping that up right now with the Planning Commission. So probably early next year, we will have the zoning in place, which ultimately, that's the big tool we have, is to put the zoning in place in this area to make sure that future development is consistent with that North End vision plan. We continue to talk regularly with Maplewood Mall as well as with Birch Run. So those are two of the huge sites for redevelopment. Not only Sears, the former Sears site with Seritage, the mall itself. Some great work is actually happening at the mall. And as I mentioned, the Birch Run site. So we are getting, especially on the Birch Run site, we're working hard on that site to try to seek redevelopment that's consistent with that vision plan. So it's on our radar, and we are regularly working on that. Those are obviously big projects that don't happen quickly. The Hy-Vee project took a year. These are projects that are even more complex and will take some time, but we are continuing to make progress on those. I mentioned the Wood Spring Suites project. I won't go over that again. If you've driven by the Chili's parking lot, you've probably seen the new medical building going up for CDI, the Center for Diagnostic Imaging. That's the building being constructed next to Chili's. And then recently, Raising Cane's was approved. So that's a really popular one. We have a consortium of chicken restaurants up in the North End with Raising Cane's going where the old where Wedding Day Jewelers is. So that building will be torn down, and they'll be building that next year in 2021. And then we continue to work on Rush Line, the bus rapid transit line that will have 2 stations in the North End, St. John's Hospital and the Maplewood Mall Transit Center. And then quick updates on Gladstone. We probably talked about this last year. There is an approval for the 3rd phase of the Frost English project at the northwest corner of Frost and English, an 8,300 square foot retail building where the liquor store was. The liquor store is closed, but that land is also owned by Sherman Development, who developed the residential there. And they have approvals to do an 8,300 square foot retail building. There hasn't been any movement on that. I suspect it's related to the economy and the retail economy today. And there was a coffee shop planned in there and some other things, and a liquor store. But the retail market has probably delayed that project. And so I don't have a time frame on when that project will be built. But there's been 2 new proposals, very early phases, very, very early phases on these 2. The first is JB Vang, and this is at the southeast corner of Frost and English, where the funeral home is today. The owner of that property is considering an 82-unit senior housing project. We don't have an application on this. The reason I bring it up is because the council, they're seeking it would be an affordable housing project, affordable senior project, and they are seeking a number of funding options for that project, one of which is some grants from the Met Council for affordable housing. And so the council passed a resolution of support for the application for that financing. So we have many steps to go through before that project moves forward, but just want to give you an update that there is still discussion about that site. They had proposed an affordable housing project a year before that, so they're certainly still interested in a housing redevelopment of that site. And then the EDA did approve a term sheet with Roars Investments. They're a multifamily developer here in the Twin Cities for a 161-unit market rate housing project on the former Moose Lodge site. So that's the northeast corner of Frost and English. And it would also incorporate the stucco business property. So there's the Moose Lodge, the stucco business, which is kind of behind Frost Avenue. And then there's like the retail building up front. There's like a 2-story, 1.5-story commercial building. It would include the Moose Lodge, it would include the stucco business, but not the building up front. So there is a term sheet, again, just an early term because the city owns the Moose Lodge property. We purchased that in 2019. And so the term sheet involves the sale of that city-owned property to facilitate the redevelopment. And then, again, Rush Line would have a station in this area, so we continue to work on the long-range project for that transit line to service Gladstone. And then the third geographic focus area, yeah.
Before you jump over, last time we met, there were some conversations about potential property swap or workings with the, was it former city hall or former police station? Can you update us? What's happened in the last months on that?
Yeah, there haven't been any, I would say there haven't been any further actions towards that because it's a little complicated because they're different parcel size. So
Right.
land we would be selling is actually bigger than the land that we own. So they're a little bit of a complicated financial deal. That site is also owned by the city. The north side is owned by the city for potential redevelopment, and we're marketing that property. And I think that land swap probably needs to happen as part of the development, for that site. So if we can find a developer interested in the Gladstone House property, we would kind of coordinate that land swap at the same time.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the last geographic kind of focus area for economic development is the Rice-Larpenter neighborhood. This is the partnership we have with the cities of Roseville and St. Paul, as well as Ramsey County. If you're tuned in, so over the past, prior to this year, there was an interim alliance established. So once the visioning and plan was adopted, there was kind of an interim alliance put in place, which was really comprised of the cities and the county. But that was just to get this organization and, to a point where ultimately not only the cities and the counties would be participating, but the businesses and the residents in this area. And so we got there. So earlier in 2020, the long-term alliance has been launched. So there's a permanent board that is comprised of not only the cities and the counties, but area businesses in all three cities, residents in all three cities are part of the board now. There's subcommittees that are working on events and placemaking, economic development. And so there's been a transition just in the organizational structure of this. And there's three things just to note that they continue with the events. So I think at the end of September that you may have seen the Rice and Larpen Tour, which was actually a really successful event that was held, community event in the neighborhood. And then Ramsey County provided some money for micro grants for businesses. So there's a couple Maplewood businesses, but in this area, it's only for businesses in Rice-Larpenter are actually to apply for some small grant monies for like facade improvements, just to improve some of the exterior buildings. And those have been successful. And then the group is just finalizing, or not finalizing, in the process of adopting a plan for wayfinding signage. So kind of taking the brand of the neighborhood and creating wayfinding signage in that area. So that's what the Alliance has been working on. St. Paul Regional Water owns what people call the Zittle property. This is where the community gardens are today. So further up Rice Street, but on the Maplewood side. So St. Paul Regional Water has determined that site is no longer needed for their operations out there. And so they have actually done kind of a solicitation for development interest on that parcel. They have, in the final stages, kind of selecting a developer for the site, which would include, the plan, which for the area includes housing. So certainly affordable housing, but a significant amount of housing, maintaining ideally the community gardens, which are out there as part of that redevelopment. And then as you can see, if you can see this image on the right-hand side, this is actually the image from the plan. Housing, the community gardens, and then potentially like some, farmers market, something up on actual Rice Street. So that's the concept plan. We're very, very early on this as well. The developer is still being selected by St. Paul Regional Water, but we expect that project, the developer to be selected and that project to move forward in a community engagement process with the city next year in 2021. So that development is moving forward. And then Metro Transit is actually doing a system-wide, it's called Network Next. So they're actually doing, I forget the exact time frame, but they are doing kind of their network planning right now for the entire region. Part of that, they are considering additional areas for arterial bus rapid transit. So that's kind of jargon, but if you're familiar with the A line on Snelling Avenue or the C line in Minneapolis, it's bus service. It's not a regional transitway like the Rush line, but it's has platforms and buy tickets before. board, it's enhanced bus service along major arterials, and they are considering Rice Street for one of those future corridors. And so the Alliance has been involved in that, recognizing that transit service to this area is important. And then just a couple of other updates. The city owns a number of parcels of land that are slated for development. And so we've been working on this over the past year. These four, 2501 London Lane is the former fire station in South Maplewood. So that's Lower Afton Road in London. We actually, we had a purchase agreement. So that went pretty far. There was a project there. Unfortunately, the purchase agreement ended up being terminated for a variety of reasons back in August. So that project is not moving forward, but we're continuing to work with, talk to developers about the sale of that land for a housing project in South Maplewood. 2228 Maplewood Drive, that's actually right next, very near Menards, northeast corner of County Road B and 61. There used to be a gas station, and the city bought it for a road project, for the intersection project. When Maplewood Drive was relocated, we bought that land, relocated the road, established the easements we needed, and now there's some remaining buildable area. So we're, working on the resale of that for development on that corner. We just talked, Mark, you asked about the Gladstone House, that property we own, and then we talked about also the former Moose Lodge. I think this is my last slide. So I did just want to cover, what's the city, a great question that I knew Hedsey would ask is, what's the city been doing in kind of response to the COVID-19 pandemic and, the business community in Maplewood? Because we've been focused on that. So the council took a number of actions, some are small, but meaningful to businesses. So first, we did kind of a stop enforcing our temporary sign regulations, during the shutdown, recognizing that businesses were struggling with struggling in general, but certainly struggling around communication and marketing. Council said the last thing we need to do is be taking down temporary signs, so we kind of just put a halt on enforcing our temporary sign regulations to give some relief to businesses. We adopted flexible outdoor dining requirements. So when the executive orders came in that required, allowed more outdoor dining than indoor dining, I think initially it was only outdoor dining and no indoor dining. We very quickly put together a plan to, allow businesses to do this. So, obstructing parking stalls and, serving liquor out there, these are complicated issues typically, but we wanted to make sure that our restaurants had the ability to very quickly implement an outdoor dining plan. So we did that in a number of our restaurants, quickly added outdoor dining areas to provide some seating during the pandemic. The council also used some of our CARES Act allotment. So our federal funding we received for pandemic response, part of that was used to rebate liquor licenses. Again, focus is on restaurants that liquor licenses are expensive. I mean, there's the high fee for liquor licenses, and there was a period where restaurants were closed and not serving liquor. So there was a rebate to account for that time period where restaurants were closed. I mentioned the Rice Larpenteur Business Grant, so we're working on those for the businesses in Rice and Larpenteur. That again only applies to businesses in the Rice Larpenteur area. The city actually allocated direct funding from some of our CARES Act dollars to the YMCA and to St. John's Hospital. So the council reviewed that and determined that they wanted to focus some of our CARES Act funding to businesses, to those that have really been on the front lines of pandemic response. And so if you've seen that the YMCA has done a ton of outreach to the community around food service and other items. So there was a part of our CARES Act funding we allocated to the YMCA, and then also naturally to St. John's Hospital for them. And then we've connected a number of businesses with Ramsey County, quickly launched a small business relief fund. So they used some of the funding they received from the federal government to establish a small business relief fund. That application is now closed. I think it closed back later in the summer. I think it's more than 8. I only got notification of the first round of businesses that received funding. So in the first round, there were 8 Maplewood businesses that received small business relief funds, and I think it was up to $10,000 that you were allowed to apply for under that program. And then we continue to connect businesses. This is not just for the pandemic. This is anytime, but it's especially important during the pandemic. The Open to Business program. So this is a program that is offered for free to businesses in Maplewood, they provide free consulting for business planning, provide free technical assistance to businesses, and also actually have financing options for businesses. So we continue to connect businesses as needed with all of these programs or initiatives that the city has done to as a response. So we also know of larger state programs and federal programs that have happened, but just wanted you to know that we're also connecting with city resources here in our local businesses in Maplewood. Okay, I think that's my development summary. I know it's a lot. Sorry, it took longer than I thought, but it's been a while since we met in this format, and so I just want to make sure that you are all up to speed on, though we haven't been meeting as frequently, economic development and housing is happening in Maplewood and very busy. So things are going well, and I think 2021 will have a lot of development happening.
All right. Any questions from the commission?
No, I'm just exhausted from hearing on this. I'm not even doing anything.
Okay, I have one. I live in the South Leg. The ponds of Battle Creek. Any update on that? Because that is still a hot button issue with a lot of words, and I'm going to say very little fact floating around down here right now.
Can't believe I forgot to put that in. It was on my list to put in, and you can't get everything, and that's important.
That's okay.
It's a very important one. Yeah. So, and the Ramsey County Board has approved, as part of their budget, closure of the ponds at Battle Creek. So, as of now, they are still planning on closing the golf course end of this year. So they're not currently planning to reopen the golf course next year. They have not made a decision on what to do with the property, other than they're not planning on operating a golf course on that site. And so we have signed a, I forget what we're calling it, memorandum, an agreement. We have an agreement with the county to go through a redevelopment planning process with the community. So the 6-month process will be, we just kicked it off. The first community meeting will likely be in mid-November. And then the second, and then additional community meetings after the first of the year. We want to avoid the holidays for community meetings. So January, February, additional community meetings. This, as part of this, we'll be looking at the ponds, not only the ponds, but actually the property adjacent to the correctional facility. There's 2 different parcels, and looking at just what's there today, what are some of the amenities and physical infrastructure, and then looking at potential redevelopment scenarios for both of those properties. So it's strong in community engagement. We'll be talking to the neighborhood and the larger area of South Maplewood about those plans to put together some concepts and visions for what that redevelopment could look like in the future. And the county is it's a partner in this with the city to go through that process.
So the county is actually looking at vacating some of the property to the north and south of the correctional facility as well?
Correct. The areas of the correctional facility site that are currently unutilized. So it's like the north and west of, I know you can't see me, I'm not in person, north and west around that building.
Okay. Having lived across Century from there, does that engagement, even though it's Maplewood and Ramsey County, is there going to be engagement with the Woodbury citizens as well because their proximity to the property?
Yeah, certainly. Yes. I mean, certainly any sort of notification we do is to areas that are adjacent to both those sites.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Oops, I'm on the wrong slide.
All right.
That's all I had for development update.
Okay.
That's enough.
Yeah. So Jeff, have us meet more often, or you're going to do another marathon report the next time we see you.
Yes. Now that we've gotten this to work and we know Zoom can happen, we'll stick with the quarterly meetings now.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, if there's no other questions for Jeff, that brings us to the last item on the agenda, which is the adjournment. So, seeing no other business, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:16 p.m. So, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. And Sarah, we'll reach out about the kind of an orientation meeting.
All right, sounds good. It's nice
Thank
to
you.
meet all of you.
You
Good to
too,
meet you.
Sarah.
You.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks everyone.